Ooh, we're on.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Grand Rounds today. Please remember to sign the attendance record, and also please remember to fill out your program evaluation, and please give the CME committee any ideas you might have in regards to future topics or future speakers. Today it is my pleasure to introduce Karen Keel-Rosser. Karen received her master's in healthcare administration at the University of Minnesota and has been vice president and quality improvement officer at Mary Greeley since 2009. And she kindly has accepted our invitation today to come and update us on improvement and innovation at Mary Greeley Medical Center. And please join me in welcoming Karen Keel-Rosser.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Great. All right. So I'm going to talk about improvement and innovation at Mary Greeley. And a couple of the things, just our objectives, understand how we select projects, the tools that we use for improvement, and how we sustain that improvement. Before we get started about talking about projects and things, it's important to start with our philosophy for improvement. We believe at Mary Greeley that every employee, regardless of the title on your badge, what your badge says your job is, that you have two jobs, to do your work and to improve your work. And the latter is really important, and where a lot of our focus has been, not that we don't want our employees to do their work, but really engaging those employees. We also we believe that by engaging our employees in the design and redesign of their work, they'll be more engaged with the organization. There's a healthcare system in Wisconsin, Pdca. Maybe you've heard of it, but they did a study. They started their improvement journey back in 2003 by including employees in their improvement projects. And they found that employees who participated in at least 2 improvement projects were more highly engaged in the organization. Their engagement scores or satisfaction scores were much higher. We believe that's true here. We commit to engaging employees in our improvement projects. I'd ask for a show of hands for the employees and even providers, because we include our providers. Who's participated in an improvement project at Mary Greeley? A lot of people here. In fact, we asked this question at our employee updates, and we average about 400 or 500 employees at updates. Almost 60% of those employees have said they've participated in an improvement project. We want to see every single one of our employees participate in an improvement project, because we know that will help our employees not only feel more engaged, but they'll take more ownership in their work if they have a chance to improve their work. I love the quote by Steve Jobs, "It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do," and we really believe in that philosophy. Our improvement philosophy is also centered around the Baldrige Framework. In 2010, Mary Greeley adopted this framework. It's really our framework for excellence, and I always say Baldrige touches every corner of this organization. It is not just a philosophy or a set of criteria around clinical outcomes or clinical metrics. It focuses on every single thing we do. It focuses on our leadership. It provides structure to our strategic planning. It gives us opportunities and strengthens our voice of the customer or our patient focus areas. It strengthens our HR systems. It helps us with our operations. And finally, we look at all of those processes, and it shows how it helps us demonstrate whether we're making improvements by our results. So we submit an application to the Baldrige program, the state program, and the national program now. We've been doing that since 2010. And our state program, we were the recipient of the highest level of recognition in 2014, and most recently again for our application in 2017. We are the first organization, the only organization in the state, to receive 2 recognitions at the highest level by the state program. We are now on our national journey, and we are confident that at one point we are going to be recognized nationally for the work that we're doing. So Baldrige, like I said, provides us with a system. It provides us with a framework, but it also provides us with a systematic approach for evaluating our work, so evaluating what we do, and then demonstrating that work with results, so that we can focus on where we need to make improvements, but where we can also celebrate what we're doing well. And that's something sometimes we don't take enough time doing. We don't often celebrate, and we don't often recognize the role model performance that we have going on in this organization. But there are a lot of things that we do exceptionally well. And at some point, you're going to hear a lot about those things that we do exceptionally well. Yeah, there's awards that we can take, that we get recognized for, and other things in the state that they're recognizing us for. But there are improvements that happen every day that are really role model improvements. So let's start talking about how we select our improvement projects. Many organizations resort to what is known as a job jar. You throw your improvements or your ideas in a jar and you just reach in and you grab one and you go. But with our philosophy of engaging employees and our commitment to the Baldrige criteria, we developed a systematic approach to project selection. Let's face it, there's a multitude of priorities. There's no shortage of reporting agencies that we work with. Many of our metrics, many of the things that we have to submit are publicly reported requirements of our participation in the Medicare program and Joint Commission. In fact, we have over 58 measures, individual metrics that we report publicly on the clinical quality of care, the process and outcomes of care, as well as our patient experience. So how do we focus on where the improvements are needed? Our strategic priorities provide some of that focus. They provide the overall direction for us. This, coupled with our commitment to the Baldrige Framework, provides us with that systematic approach for project selection. The other thing that we did at this organization a while back, we had a presentation, our leadership had some education by Ken Rohde. He works in the aeronautical industry, actually, and he shared with us high reliability methods and talked with us about you should really know your key work processes. What's the work that you do? And we know that at Mary Greeley we take care of patients. That's primarily what we're doing. We're taking care of patients. So what we had to do was we had to break down our system of care. We're one large system with a multitude of things that go on here. It's not just about departments, but what do we do? So we broke it down into two parts: patient care and support care. We have people who have jobs that take care of patients, supporting taking care of patients. And within that patient care bucket, we broke that into 5 key work systems: admitting, assessing, treating, discharging, and the continuum of care. And then in the support area, we're talking about things like HR, benefits, we're talking about our finance area, supply chain management and procurement. But within that patient care bucket, we believe that this encompasses most all of the care that's provided and the services to our patients. And that helps us provide focus on where improvement projects need to be. We created an Innovation and Improvement Council that guides us through a systematic approach of project selection, prioritization, and resource allocation. So what this council does is anyone in the organization can submit an idea via an online paper, or we even take emails. Someone might say, hey, I have an idea, or I have a project, or I have a problem. They can submit this idea to the Innovation and Improvement Council. The team meets monthly and they vet each request. They take a look at what is actually involved in the project. They even invite the requester to the meeting to ask additional information, questions about what they're looking for, really trying to get at the root of the issue or the improvement that is at hand. And the Improvement and Innovation Council created this template. Actually, it's a grid of all the projects that we have. And this prioritization matrix at the top is a weighted scale. And after we have all of these projects that are submitted, the team then considers all the information that the requester has provided and what we know about the problem. So with this one, we have an emergency department behavioral health patient management process issue. Christy Krause, Bonnie Kester came to the team and said, we need help in defining this process and improving it. So the Improvement Council then evaluated this process. Does there have regulatory issues associated with that? They rated it pretty high, yes. Are there patient or employee safety issues related to this process? The things that we heard about the problem? Yeah, they rated it pretty high. Is there a financial impact? Not really so much, but we took that into consideration, so medium. Was there a patient or employee satisfaction issue there? Well, yeah, that was high. We know that we weren't meeting the needs of the patients, and we were dissatisfying the employees. And then the impact Does this impact a large number of patients? And again, we rated that pretty high. So we get a total score, and this provides us just with kind of a guide. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to do the project or initiate the improvement or tackle the issue, but it just provides us with a guide so that we can prioritize a little better. So we're really using some metrics and some key initiatives here to focus on which projects would support the organization best. So before I get further down the line with this improvement, I forgot about the innovation piece. And innovation is different than improvement. Innovation takes it another step further. And innovation is something that we're starting to focus on a little bit more here. There's a lot of innovation that goes on, but I don't think we always think about the innovation. I don't think we always think about the things that we're doing as innovative because we're constantly improving our work. The Baldrige definition of innovation is meaningful change that involves adopting an improvement to a product or a service that is either new or new to its proposed application and creates new value to the customer, stakeholder, patient. So new to its proposed application and creates new value. So a couple of ideas of that. Now, tennis balls are not necessarily innovative in and of themselves, but tennis balls at the bottom of walkers, that's taking an existing product and implementing it in a new way. And I bet those tennis balls definitely bring new value to those who use walkers. Or how about this one? I bet a couple of you have this in your garage so that your teenager doesn't hit the garage door or something in the garage. They have that little test of where they should stop the car at. So this isn't, the tennis ball isn't new, it's just the application of it. So we're really training our leaders and our staff to think about innovation this way. Because again, we stumble a little bit on what's innovative. I think we're a very innovative organization. Sometimes we don't take advantage of those innovations. So let's move on to our model and tools for improvement. We have a lot of tools in our improvement toolbox. Some we use more than others. We have adopted lean methodology, the lean principles. We do a lot of the lean manufacturing principles here, and that really is primarily with 6S and standard work, visual management. You're going to see a lot of that here at Mary Greeley. I bet you see a lot of that right now. Our leaders have been trained on 5S'ing, or what we call 6S'ing, because we added an additional S, sort, straighten, standardize, sustain. We added safety to that S, to be the 6S, because we're always focused on safety. But our leaders were trained on this many years ago when we standardized, when we 5S'd our warehouses. And we sorted and straightened and shined and did all the 5S's and then created safety. And we've improved that process to the point where we no longer have a warehouse where we store old furniture, old equipment. Because our process has been so standardized, we've gone through so many cycles of improvement in that process that we eliminated the warehouse that we used to have. We actually had 2 warehouses. We now manage our excess inventory or supplies or things that we no longer use through what we call a virtual red tag process, and that is innovative. That's using our technology in a new way to bring new value. We don't have things laying around. We don't have extra chairs laying around. We use it or we move it on out. So when we look at our tools, we know that we have a lot of tools, but we need a structure or a model to use these tools. And our improvement model at Mary Greeley is Pdca. This isn't rocket science. This has been in place for decades. And a lot of organizations use Pdca. I bet if you think of an improvement in your own work or in your own areas, you've used Pdca. You may have used it without even knowing it. Pdca is the building blocks for all of our improvement efforts. Using the Pdca model, we have 3 levels of improvement that we focus on. And for purposes of today, I'm really going to focus on 2 of those, but rapid improvement events, that's the top of our pyramid, of our improvement pyramid. These are usually smaller in size, in number. They're a multi-day improvement activity, usually 3 days, 5 to 10 employees closest to the work that are dedicated to an event, to improving a specific process or problem. And when I say dedicated to this event, we're taking them away from their work for 3 days. That's a huge commitment to this organization, but that's why we have such a focus, and that's why Mary Greeley has made such significant strides on their improvement journey, because we allow those employees the opportunity to make improvements to their work. We facilitate just-in-time training with those tools, using key tools that are going to help the team solve complex problems. So we chuckle a little bit about this, but we kind of teach employees as they go, and somewhat in some fashion we kind of brainwash them. They don't always know they're being taught the tools of lean or waste elimination until after the event is over. They learn that these are some pretty phenomenal tools that they can use not only in the event, but they take them away and they use them in their departments. So we provide that just-in-time training. We provide them with that facilitation throughout the 3-day event of how to make improvements. There are projects, that's the middle of our pyramid. We have a lot of projects that go on at the organization. They typically take several days or weeks to complete. These are, you set up a meeting to look at a problem, you identify the problem, you have a couple of people that are there, you then break for another couple of weeks, set up another meeting, and come back and forth. They often involve a team that works on the problem, a consistent team, but sometimes people come and go, might not always be able to get people there to the event or to the meeting, but they're a consistent group that are trying to solve a problem. The key here is the team is working on this problem in conjunction to doing their work every day. So for a very short period of time during the day, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, they can dedicate to this problem, and then they have to go back to their work. And then they come back after a couple more weeks, so you lose some momentum in the project work. And then the second one that I am going to stress today and share a little bit more with you is daily improvements. It's not that they're the bottom of the pyramid, they're the foundation of our pyramid. Daily improvements are the small things that every employee can do each day to not only eliminate waste in their work, but make small improvements to make their work better and other people's work better. They can involve things like moving a piece of equipment so that it's stored at the point of use, or placing a guard for a sink that so that contents don't splash around. Those two are two exact improvements that we had through our daily improvement projects. Initially, a lot of improvements come from the top of the pyramid in those rapid improvement events, but ultimately, we believe if we are going to get to the pinnacle of our improvement journey, we have to engage every employee in identifying and helping us make those improvements every day. So today I'm going to talk about some of those improvements. Rapid improvement events is the first one I want to talk about. So this is when we have identified through the Innovation and Improvement Council that we definitely have an improvement to make. We have a process or a problem that needs improvement. So this event is moved from the Innovation and Improvement Council, and we hold a pre-work meeting. And at this pre-work meeting, we complete this charter. And this charter really focuses on who's going to be in the project? Who are the team members? We have already identified and assigned the executive sponsor, the process owner, and the facilitator, but who's all going to be on the team? We bring, like I said, those closest to the work and identify what individuals need to be part of the team, but we also bring people from outside the area. And the other key that we add to these rapid improvement events, we add a wild card. And a wild card is somebody who has nothing to do with the area at all, nothing to do with the process. It's a new set of eyes. And the wild card always brings value to those events because they ask the extra questions. Why do you do it that way? Why is that important? How is that going to impact safety or impact patient care? We've even had wild cards from outside of the organization. We brought a wild card in from the United Way once. We brought patients in as wild cards. We bring patients into a lot of our events because a lot of times our events are centered around the services that we're providing to patients. So as well as in this charter that we develop, every rapid improvement event has a charter. We look at the scope of the project. And scope is important because we don't want to try to improve, set out to improve the world with some of these improvement projects. We really have to focus on what is the issue, what is the real issue at hand. We identify a start and a stop within the scope. And at this pre-work meeting, with the lead, the executive sponsor, we commit to that scope. because it's really vital when we get to the improvement project with the team that we don't let things get out of hand. We identify metrics and what we want to achieve. Do we want to achieve something specific? Are we looking at patient safety? Are we looking to achieve efficiency, effectiveness? We look for those metrics. And that's something that we have really been focusing on in the past probably 2 years, more significantly on those metrics. Because if you can't measure things, if you don't have key metrics before the event, so pre-improvement, how are you going to know if you're getting better? So that's something that has been significant in our rapid improvement events. So once we have defined that charter, we scheduled the date, we have actually created standard work for conducting our rapid improvement events. Every single event has the very similar agenda. And that's so that every one of our events move through systematically to address any issue or item that we may have, and we don't get off task. So the team reviews the scope and understands what the scope of the project is. They understand the objectives, and together the team creates a purpose statement. So this purpose statement really serves as, for the 3-day event and then ongoing, we go back to that purpose statement to make sure that we are following what we said we were going to follow and the improvements that we wanted to make. We do an exercise around voice of the customer. We identify who the customer is and what their needs are. Sometimes in healthcare or in improving our work, we think we know what the customer wants, but we have to really go through that exercise of what is it really that, who is the customer in the work? It's not always the patients. A lot of times it's the patients, but sometimes it's our own fellow employees. Sometimes it's the provider. Sometimes it's outside of healthcare. So we have to define who those, if there's one customer or multiple customers, and what their specific needs are. And again, that helps us ground us in the improvement that we're going to make. And then we go see. And in the lean manufacturing world, they call that go to the gemba. We don't use those Japanese terms here. With a lot of our improvement projects, we use real life terms because that resonates better with employees. So we go and see the work that's being done. And that's important because everyone on that team may not be familiar with the process. So we all go and see the work. We go and see the process. And then we come back to our work area and we map the current state. So with the information that we know from what we went to see and what we know from the process owner leading us through mapping the state, we can map out the current state with pretty close 100%, almost 100% assurance that we have mapped out what we're currently doing with that process that we're trying to improve. And at this point is when we usually have to go back to the purpose statement to ground us in why we're there and why we're looking for those opportunities. Because after we map that current state, we call out the starbursts. We actually, on the map, put starbursts on the map to say, where is there an opportunity for improvement? As we're going, it's very clear for staff to see and those participating, wow, that's kind of clunky. There's waste there. Or what's the value in that to the customer? So it's a very powerful exercise and a visual exercise for the staff to see those participating in the event where there are opportunities. After we do that, and that's about a day's worth of work, and actually after that day, that's kind of like the point where the team is maybe a little overwhelmed, overstimulated. They go home feeling like, wow, this is really a problem. I don't know how we're going to fix it. And it's almost consistent in all of our events, 3-day events. People leave and think there's no way to fix this. They come back the next day and we start talking about it. We start looking at the map and looking at the improvements. We break apart in teams and identify and prioritize what improvements on that map should we and can we really tackle. And then the team starts working on some of those. And throughout the 3 days, for the next day and a half, they're working on some actual improvements to the process that they've just mapped out. And that's so that when they leave, when we're done with the event, they've actually seen some results. They've seen some improvements. They're going to implement some of those improvements. They may be small tests of change. They may be just small improvements that they're going to try out, but at least they've been able to work through some of those. That's significant in these events. So by the end of day 2 and into day 3, Everybody on that event is thinking, wow, I can't believe I wouldn't have thought we could come up with some of these improvements. I'm feeling really good about this. This might work, and they're really energized. We create an implementation plan at the end of our event that looks like this. And this implementation plan provides the team with a checklist of improvements. Who's going to do what and when? And this is really helpful because as we walk away from that 3-day event, these aren't all done. Some of these things might get done before we leave the event, but many of them need a little additional time. But at least we have a focus. At least we know what we're going to work on and what needs to be done. And then we coordinate completing those projects. So that's our 3-day rapid improvement event. That's the top of that pyramid. Now I'm going to go through the foundation of our pyramid, where we look at daily improvements. This philosophy is one of the most significant. Like I said, when we get to the point where we know every single employee is engaged and making improvements and suggesting improvements to their daily work, we know that we have spread the improvement philosophy throughout the organization effectively. We're not there yet, but remember, do your work, improve your work. This is where it comes in. Daily improvements. This is actually a platform. We have a system, computer system, a software system that we use. We use it for our project management, so our rapid improvement event management, but we also use it to manage our daily improvements. Employees can log in. They can submit their idea for improvement 24/7. It doesn't matter if their leader is here or not. Any employee can log in and think, gee, this really bugs me when I have to do this 10 times over. Why don't we come up with a way that it's just streamlined? They submit that into this platform. It automatically goes to their leader. And their leader can then work with them on, hey, I see you submitted an idea. This is a great idea. Let's talk about this. Let's work on this. And they engage the employee in that improvement. Again, the purpose is of our daily improvement platform, and these are quick wins, quick things for employees to do. We want to harvest their ideas. We want to engage them in improving their work every day. And sometimes employees identify something that we aren't even aware of. Things that we may not have even considered had we not had that employee submit this idea. To date, we have had almost 2,800 improvements submitted and completed at Mary Greeley. That's significant. We've had this program since 2015. Over 1,900 of those improvements have resulted in a change. That means we're doing something different. Imagine if we didn't have a daily improvement philosophy. We would have missed out on almost 2,000 employee ideas. Can you imagine what that would do to our organization if 2,000 times an employee thought of something that maybe they would have gone to their leader with, but there was no systematic way to get that information out. Maybe it's the middle of the night. Sometimes your greatest ideas come in the middle of the night. You can pop on the system and put them in. Employees can do that too. This chart demonstrates the impact to our organization with our daily improvement program since we started. I want to draw your attention to this top bar. And this system helps us when we complete an improvement, when our leaders sit down with the staff and they complete the improvement, we categorize them. We have had over 1,281 improvements that have directly impacted staff satisfaction. I think we're going to beat Pdca. So now let's talk about sustaining improvements. We do a lot. We do all these rapid improvement events, these 3-day events. We come up with tons of ideas. We have daily improvements. They're coming at us every day, 2,800 daily improvements and then some. Ideas every day that are coming at us. How do we sustain all those improvements? Well, we have our platform. We have the system that helps us track these things. And of course, we use data to monitor them. But standardization is key to how we can sustain some of our most important improvements. Some of the things that have step-by-step instructions or multiple steps in the improvement process. So we use standard work. And this document, we have probably, I know Eric's up there. Eric is the king, Eric Edelman. Raise your hand. He is the king of standard work. He and Ron Smith create these documents, help the staff create these documents. These documents, outline with pictures and simple instructions how to repeat a process. So when there are multiple steps in a process, how to take those steps from one to the end in a repeatable fashion so that the same desired result always occurs. So we use these standard work documents in a lot of the work we do. We probably have thousands of them. Not everything we do has standard work, but right up here we have standard work on how to log onto the system and how to use our system because it's important. It's used all the time by multiple different people. We've had standard work created. The next one, I believe, nope, this one actually was created by one of our staff nurses. She had identified a problem. She submitted the idea into our daily improvements platform, and she worked with her leader on how to standardize IJ insertion. Because when a physician orders this, she said sometimes there are multiple different things that a provider needs, and there's no standardization for what to get when and what kind of medications and things that you need, and then the step-by-step instructions, because this isn't usually something that we do all the time on a floor. So standardizing these step-by-step instructions helps not only that nurse, but it helps every nurse who has to do this at Mary Greeley. So this is how we sustain our improvements. We've improved our process for IJ insertion, and standard work helps us get that out to the organization. And here's a standard work for operating an SCD pumps that we use on the inpatient floor. We have standard work everywhere. One of our first standard work documents and some of our champions of standard work is in our environmental services department. They standardized their terminal room cleaning. So that's a cleaning of a room after a patient is discharged. When we mapped out that process and went to see that process, we counted 186 some steps that you need to take to clean a room after a patient is discharged. Who could remember all that? And who could remember, who would want to look at us at 186 steps? So they created documents that broke down the steps into some key areas, and then they created standard work documents. And you know what that did to our staff that created those standard work documents? Their satisfaction with their job jumped. Our turnover decreased in that department because staff felt empowered. They felt appreciated, respected, and valued for creating this, and they felt like, gee, I'm doing the same exact work that my partner is doing or my coworker is doing. We're all doing the same thing. The results that we had for our quality when we do our quality checks on reviewing our terminal room cleans escalated because we used the same process over and over again, and every single employee was trained to that standard work. It has been phenomenal at sustaining our improvements and engaging our staff in those improvements. So in closing, we have a philosophy of engaging those closest to the work. We use fact-based decision-making in our improvement work so we can take a look at where we're at today with a baseline and know whether or not our improvements have moved the needle at all. And we set expectations for our staff for providing safe and effective and efficient care through standardization and help them with standard work documents. The last thing I want to leave you with, all of these projects, whenever we complete a project, and again, we've completed hundreds of them at Mary Greeley, we have a report out we call First Friday. So it's the first Friday of every month. Everybody's invited. In fact, this week, we have First Friday, and we are going to have a report out of our patient-centered scheduling team. This team is innovative in that they have identified things that in our patient scheduling process in Epic that probably is not done by any other Epic organization. We may have created some tools for Epic to use and model as best practice. So they're going to report out on their progress to date. First Friday provides us with that opportunity not only to report those projects, so the whole team comes and gets to share in the reporting, but it's a great opportunity for us to learn from one another. We have learning that goes on from one department to another. We might report out on a small project in the GI department, and the radiology department learns something, and they take it back to their workstations. Isn't that great for the organization to be able to share that learning, to have an opportunity to share, and then report out and others learn from? That's exactly what we need to do. So I invite you to First Friday. If you can't make it this Friday, we'll have one in March. It's always the first Friday 8 a.m. right here. So with that, I'd entertain any questions you might have.
How to learn from others elsewhere. Sometimes things that one does are gleaned from what happens in other institutions, where we might not have the opportunity to see if we're always working in the same place. So how does Mary Greeley get the information from other institutions regarding possible hot ideas?
Hot ideas, great question. I'll go back to Baldrige. Raise the hands of those who are Baldrige Examiners in the room, because I know there are a couple of them in here. Mary Greeley has over 68 years of trained Baldrige Examiner experience. Some 30 Baldrige Examiners who have gone through the examiner training, and part of that training is to examine an application that's submitted by someone in the state, or there are 3 of us now that are national examiners, someone in the country. And not only do we get to read their application, but we get to go on site by them. And we get to learn what they're doing. And these applications aren't just submitted by healthcare organizations. They're submitted by manufacturing organizations, education. They're submitted by nonprofits. I was able to go on a national site visit to a for-profit small business that actually won the Baldrige Award this year and see what they're doing. And we see the exact same things that they're trying to do, but in a different organization. So we actually get inside the organization and see all their details. The other way that we learn is through the variety of different organizations that we work with. So the Iowa Healthcare Collaborative, the Iowa Lean Consortium, we share. We had a sharing day here about a year and a half ago where we had organizations from throughout the state, came to Mary Greeley, healthcare, manufacturing, all kinds of organizations. They came here and we shared with them how we do our work, how we implement improvement projects, how we use our daily improvement platform. We also go on site to other organizations and share and learn from them. So we don't stay in the walls of Mary Greeley. We like to go outside and see. Craig Toole has been wonderful to us in sharing. We work with Danfoss. They've been wonderful to look at how they do their workflows and improve work processes. Any other questions? All right. If you would love to be in a rapid improvement event or an improvement project, or if you have a process that you want to improve, you don't have to look for the form. Look for me, and I'd be happy to help you and happy to have you on a team. Thank you.